Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Kris Flammang and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you all to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I'm your host, Kris Flammang, here as always. And today I have the distinct honor of welcoming Hillel Presser on the podcast. His self-named law office based in Boca Raton, Florida, specializes in helping businesses and individuals establish comprehensive asset protection plans. He's been featured in newspapers, magazines, on radio, and television networks. Hillel also authored several books and articles on asset protection laws. Thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time. So I want to learn a little bit about your history. So take me through a brief summary of what led you to where you are today.
Sure. So as far back as I can remember, if you would have asked me, when I was 10 years old, what I was going to be, I probably would have said a lawyer. I always wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah. And it probably had something to do with the fact that at that point, I was very close with my uncle, who was a big personal injury attorney. So probably the opposite of what we do. And if you asked me back then, I probably would have told you I was going to be a personal injury attorney. And as I grew up and I did all my schooling, heading towards law school, my whole life I loved business. And one day, I met someone who was an asset protection attorney. And I never even in my life heard of an asset protection attorney. There's 1,000 criminal attorneys in every city, 1,000 real estate attorneys in every city. There may be 5 or 10 asset protection attorneys in the whole country that we even compete with. So when I heard about asset protection, to me, it was the perfect marriage of business and law. And I said, instead of being one of these lawyers, who are out there trying to take people's money, I thought it'd be pretty neat to be one of the lawyers that actually help you protect what you've worked so hard for. So for me, it was A, the perfect marriage of business and law, and B, to be able to help people take the chips off the table that they worked so hard for. To me, it was a no-brainer. And it's funny because I tell people that I am the lawyer that hates lawyers.
I like that. Yeah. So how did you go about choosing your firm's main focus and service offerings? How did you come to that conclusion? Here's what we're going to focus on. This is what we're going to do.
Sure. So every single person is worried about growth. Whether it's a school teacher who's worried about saving up for retirement, whether it's a business owner and it's never going to be enough and they want to grow. But nobody ever stops to think about preservation of principal. And there's only one thing worse than, not making money or breaking even, and that's losing money. So I thought it would be a really nice special niche to help people who have worked their entire lives, whether that means they have $25,000 in the bank or $25 million in the bank. I thought it'd be pretty nice to help those people take those chips off the table. Now, whether it's because they want to retire, live a better life, give their kids the things they haven't had, donate to charity, I wanted to put them in the driver's seat where some frivolous lawsuit, maybe that they didn't even do. Maybe one of their employees allegedly did something, or one of their children got in a car accident driving their car. But I wanted to take the chips off the table that they worked so hard for. So it's really nice, and it's a passion of mine, and it feels great when you can really help make someone, uncollectible and judgment-proof.
So I know you've been in business for quite a while. I'm curious if you could go back in time and tell that younger you something, you could give that younger you some advice. What do you think it would be?
There's a lot of things if we could turn back the clock and say, but, really it's just, I think we've done a good job of just, my goal has always been help as many people as you can and educate as many people as you can. And if you help as many people as you can, and if you educate as many people as you can, the business will come. So, don't so much worry about the marketing. Don't so much worry about getting the business. Educate people, help people, the business will come.
Yeah. I think it said, if you help others, then that's going to, in the long run, will help you. That'll work out. That should be the focus.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm curious, what do you like best about your practice right now? What are you liking best?
I like best the people that I get to deal with. And when I say people, that starts with, my staff. We have a fantastic group of people, from the receptionist, who I don't call a receptionist, I call a director of first impressions, because that's the first voice or face that a potential client sees. Mm-hmm. And whether it's her, whether it's assistants, whether it's attorneys, directors of operations, I love the people that I work with. It really is like a family here. So I enjoy getting up every morning. I enjoy coming to work. I enjoy the camaraderie. I also love dealing with the clients, and I thank them because, I think they teach me as much as I teach them. But I love dealing with the clients. I love the personal relationships. We deal mostly, with a lot of business owners, a lot of retirees, but really it's anyone who just doesn't want to lose what they worked so hard for. So whether it's forming that bond with the retired school teacher, whether it's, helping the business owner on his journey from, X to 10X, I just love the people interaction. I also really like the architecture. So I love sitting down, looking at all the facts and architecting a case. To me, it's like a puzzle and putting all the right pieces in the right places.
Yeah, it's almost like a chess match, not with the client, but yeah, you're trying to think of the moves. I think of that too in what I do, where it's a puzzle that needs to be solved. And the puzzle's always solved differently for different persons based on their circumstances. But helping them see that solution at the end is so satisfying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, what areas of your practice do you find to be the most challenging?
The most challenging is probably people getting in the way of themselves. And, we talked about at the beginning how, this type of practice, asset protection, is really such a niche. And people say, oh, that must be a good thing. It's a niche. But it can also be a bad thing. And the reason being is that a lot of times people don't know about asset protection until it's too late. They get a judgment against them, they get sued, and now all of a sudden they're Googling, how do I protect my assets? And at that point, it may be too late. So, it's a challenge. And that's why one of our goals, that's why, I write all the books. That's why I do all the speaking presentations each year. My goal is educate as many people as possible, because you really want to be proactive, no different than anything else. You don't buy the car insurance after the accident, and you don't buy the life insurance after the death. And no difference here. You want to make sure that you're proactive. And like anything, right? People don't like to spend money unless they need to, which, believe me, I'm the same way, and I totally understand. So someone who may even know about it may say, well, do I really need that? Am I going to be sued? And the answer is we just don't know, right? If we do the planning, we probably never get sued. And if we don't do the planning, we probably do get sued. That's just the way the world works. Right. So I think people, unfortunately, get in their own way. And sometimes you just got to get out of the way and let things happen.
Yeah. And that's a good segue. So broadly defined, what is asset protection? So maybe we don't have people that really know what that means or get it, or maybe they don't think they have enough money to do it. So broadly, what is it?
Sure. So first, the long, boring legal definition, which is, asset protection is essentially the legal process of titling both your personal and business assets to put them beyond the reach of future potential threats and creditors and liabilities. So in layman's terms, what we do as asset protection attorneys is we want to make it so difficult, so expensive, if not impossible, for anybody to collect against you that they don't want to sue you in the first place. We don't want our clients to be the low-hanging fruit. So our clients have worked very, very hard. But one lawsuit, one car accident, one divorce, one breach of contract, one slip and fall could take everything away from them. So we want to help make them uncollectible and judgment proof. And, asset protection is not only for the ultra wealthy. In fact, I can argue the less you have, the more important it is. Like I said, we represent, retired school teachers. We represent business owners. We represent billionaires. We represent, 30 or 40 professional athletes and everywhere in between. But think about it. Take one of our professional athlete clients that signs a $40 million deal. Well, if they get sued for $5 million, they're not happy, but they still have $35 million left. Take the school teacher who's saved up $300,000 over her career. She gets sued for $1 million. She's wiped out. It's catastrophic. So the less you have, the more important it becomes. Now, obviously, we're not going to use the same techniques and tactics for someone who has 300,000, for someone who has 3 million or 30 million or 300 million. And you just need to find the right fit. So there's nothing cookie cutter. Everything needs to be individualized, customized, and tailored for the client because everybody's assets are different and everybody's potential threats and creditors and liabilities are different.
Okay. So simply put, I guess, what would you say is the reason why people need to do it? I mean, you shared with some of those reasons just now, but if you were going to give a defining point on, this is the reason that you should consider doing it, what would that be?
Unfortunately, we live in a very litigious society. Lawsuits have literally become the next biggest business. I'd have to check the stats, but I think it's something like there's over 100 million lawsuits every single year, and that number is only growing. You can tell by the billboards and the radios and the TV commercials. I think that last time I checked, it was something like there's a 1 in 4 chance you'll be sued in the next 12 months. And the average person or business is sued about 5 times over their lifetime. So it's probably inevitable that at some point you're going to be sued or you're going to be threatened to be sued. And no different than having car insurance or health insurance or life insurance. You worked hard for whatever the assets are that you have, and you want to make sure you're protected. So I'm a very conservative person. And again, it's one thing if I don't make that much money, I'm okay with that. I can live with that. But I don't want to lose what I worked so hard for. I don't want to start over.
And why is it that in the United States that is so rampant? I mean, not to get into the weeds, but I think other countries have, what's the term, tort reform or something like that, or what? But why is it so rampant in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, every country is different, but the U.S. makes it so easy to sue anyone you want. So literally for free, you can hire an attorney because they take your case on a contingency fee, and it costs you nothing.
Right.
Now, that attorney taking your case knows that it's going to cost you 10, 20, 100,000, $1 million just to defend your case. So they can force a settlement, even if there's no liability, just because based on a cost benefit analysis, it would cost the person they're suing more money to even try and defend themselves than just to pay a quick $5,000 or $10,000. Now, the lawyer, if he wins, normally takes about a third, sometimes 40%. So lawyer sues and he negotiates a quick $100,000 settlement. Well, the lawyer gets $33,000 or $40,000 plus or minus, for probably not doing much work. Also, if the lawyer loses and the person suing loses, in most cases, unless it's stated by contract or statute, they don't even have to pay your attorney's fees. So I can literally sue you right now and say, you know what? You looked at me wrong. To me, that sounds like intentional infliction of emotional distress. I can't speak anymore. I sue you for $100 million. You want to settle now for lunch and $500? Well, if the answer is no, it's going to cost you 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 just to win the case. So unfortunately, it puts the people suing in a very easy and pretty much free position with nothing to lose. And the person that you're suing, I mean, they're forced to either defend the lawsuit or settle.
Yeah, the consequences of suing and not working out aren't there. So it's like a worry-free proposition.
Yeah, and in other countries, you have to post a bond in order to sue. So if you want to sue, you have to post a bond. And I love it because then if you lose, you have to pay the other side.
Right.
Unfortunately, lawsuits, which don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're never needed. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just saying, unfortunately, they've become a business and a big business.
Yeah. And it's probably unlikely that would ever be reformed anytime soon. What do you think about that? I'm just asking your opinion.
Yeah. Good luck. And, you got the insurance company. I mean, good luck,
Yeah. Well, that's good for you because then people need the asset protection, right? Because more lawsuits every year, right? For any reason.
I mean, look, yeah, you could say it's good for me, but I'd rather live in a harmonious society where we all can get along, and
Right.
I'll find something else to do. I'll find another way to help people.
Right. Okay, so I think you touched on this, but some unintended consequences of not doing asset protection. I mean, obviously you're out there, swimming without a suit on, but just broadly speaking, what are some of the negative things that you've seen from people not taking proactive action for asset protection?
They lose everything. They lose things they didn't even know they had, and they lose it when it's not even their fault. So, when you ask somebody what they have and you tell them to inventory their wealth, what do they think of? They think of the money. They think of their house, maybe their business. Well, if someone owes you $100,000, that's an asset. If you have an inheritance, that's an asset. What about your intellectual property, like your phone number or your domain name? If that started to point to the competitor, you'd be in trouble. So first thing I always make a client do when they come into my office is inventory their wealth, because people always have so much more than they think they do. So you really need to know, what you have. Number two is, people don't realize that they don't have to do something in order to be sued. If your daughter drives your car and gets in a car accident, you get sued because it's your car.
Right.
Or if someone slips and falls on your property while you're away for a 3-week vacation, you get sued because it's your property. If your employee does something that he or she shouldn't have, you get sued because it's your employee. So it's one thing if we do something ourselves, but it's another thing where other people or other assets and properties and businesses can cause liability even without us. So while we're sitting here having this conversation, something can happen that we have nothing to do with, and one of us gets sued.
That's a good point. I like how you stated that, and people don't think about it that way. They just think about the stuff that they have. Okay,
Correct.
So let's switch gears a little bit. What are some of the international components of asset protection? So not like to go into the weeds about what they are and how they work, but just why those are maybe a little bit different than domestic things that you can do.
So domestic simply just means inside the United States, and international means outside the United States. And you see domestic asset protection is used the majority of the time. You see international asset protection planning used if someone has a lot of liquid assets, and they do it for more or added protection. And the reason why international asset protection gives you more protection is the entity is most likely outside the United States. So it's not subject to, U.S. courts or U.S. jurisdiction or U.S. judges. And then more than likely the asset itself is also outside of the United States. So it's not subject to U.S. courts or U.S. jurisdiction or U.S. judges. So when someone puts together an international asset protection plan, it makes it much more difficult, much more expensive for someone to try and collect against that person than it would domestically. Now, again, I wouldn't say that's the common individual. That's for someone who maybe has sold a business, maybe someone who's inherited money. That's for someone who has a lot of liquid assets. If you're talking just a couple $100,000, we're not even thinking about international. If someone has a couple $1 million, then we're at least discussing it.
It's something that's going to come up in the discussion. Okay. So I'm curious, without sharing any confidential info or details, can you give us like a high level example of a situation where you totally changed the trajectory of a client's situation from when they came in to, when you were done working with them?
Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on, but I'll give you one or two quick ones. We had a client and they were suing somebody and thought they had a great case, was going to win a lot of money. Well, lawsuits take years, things go up, things go down, judges change, juries change, laws change. And, at the end of the day, all you're sure about is that you're unsure. Well, to make a long story short, fast forward years later, the case took a total reversal. And the case where the client thought they were going to win an absurd amount of money was now looking at like they were going to lose about a $20 million. We were able to help that client, in conjunction with other things, negotiate a very inexpensive settlement. Maybe it was $250,000 plus or minus, as opposed to losing a $20 million lawsuit. Now, the only reason we were able to help that client negotiate was because we were able to help them tell the other side that they were uncollectible, that they were judgment proof. So here's a client who thinks they're going to win a case for mega bucks. The case turns around, all of a sudden they're going to lose 20 million. And we end up helping them settle for 250,000. Now, they obviously weren't happy writing a check. They thought they were going to win money, but it was a lot better than losing $20 million. There was another client that I could think of who had, I think it was about a $5 million judgment, not even a lawsuit, a judgment against them. And we were able, based on their asset protection plan, to help them negotiate out for about $500,000. So asset protection doesn't mean you'll never spend a penny. Asset protection doesn't mean you'll never write a check. But, if I can get you not to be the low-hanging fruit, if I can save you from being sued even just once, well, right there, we've saved tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in legal fees. And if someone does sue you, if it's a legitimate claim, if we can help settle for 5-10 cents on the dollar, to me, that's a victory.
Yeah, and that's the perspective that you have to look at it for sure. Okay, let's switch gears here. I want to ask you, what would you say is your biggest life accomplishment so far? So this could be personally or professionally or both.
Sure. I'd have to go, on the personal side, certainly just, being married to a great wife. I have two unbelievable sons. One's about 6 years old. One's about 1 year old. So I'm definitely busy at home. But
yeah, you're in it.
Yeah, my greatest joy is spending time with the family, and just very, very lucky to have that. Great,
fantastic. And outside of your practice, is there something that you're passionate about personally? A cause, an idea, or?
So I'm passionate about a lot of things. I'm a passionate guy.
I can tell.
I have that entrepreneurial spirit. I think I was the first student ever to graduate from Syracuse University with a sole major in entrepreneurialism. They said to me, "Okay, but what's your minor? Marketing or accounting?" And I said, "No, I don't need a minor." And
I am singularly focused.
they looked at me like I was crazy, like I had two heads.
Yeah.
But I work a lot. We help a lot of people. So between business and personal and family, there's not a lot of free time.
Yep.
But I love music. Really, really love music. Don't play any instruments, or certainly not well, but just love all types of music in general. I like movies. I like going out to eat. Really just spending time with family and friends. My mother unfortunately passed away very early from Alzheimer's. So, that's something that, of course, is close to my heart. But really just trying to enjoy the now. Tomorrow's not promised. And, you want to go out and enjoy every day and help as many people and live life to the fullest.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very similar to me, where you're into experiences that you can have, because I think that's the stuff that people always remember. Remember when we did this, or remember when we did that. It's not the stuff that they had or owned or the things. It's the experiences. That's great.
Yeah, I'm also involved with a bunch of different, peer-to-peer groups, which I love, mostly business related, others, life related. But, when you really get together once a month or once every 2 months, with the same group of guys, trusted guys, and, you can help each other with personal or business issues. You can learn from each other. And I really enjoy that as well.
All right. So let's go back to talking a little bit about the business. What do you see looking into the future as being your biggest opportunity for the future of your practice?
Really just, helping more people, and helping more people by letting more people know that we exist. So, you can have a car that flies, but if no one knows you have it,
right,
it really means nothing. So, my goal for 2022 is to help double the amount of people that we helped in 2021. And it's very straightforward. It's very black and white. So, we're always looking to grow. We're always looking to help more people, and, really just educate more people on asset protection, because like I said, a lot of people have never even heard of asset protection. And if they did, a lot of times it's just too late.
Or they don't really get what it means, or they don't think it applies to them. Right.
Yeah. Also probably one of the biggest misconceptions is kind of that difference between asset protection and estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
So
why don't you talk about that?
So, every day I get a call, probably a few calls or emails that say, "Oh, well, I've done my estate planning. I have a trust, so I'm protected." And the answer is absolutely not. You have 0% protection. And that is the biggest misconception that I see every day, all day. So estate planning, and to be simple, deals with death, and asset protection, to be simple, deals with life. So estate planning, and when people think of estate planning, they think of like wills and trusts. Well, think about what that is. Estate planning is when you die, where do you want the assets to go? And I think it's really, really important. Everybody should have an estate plan, but that gives you 0% asset protection. If you put a will and trust together and you put all your assets in a trust and you get sued, that trust, that revocable living trust, is not protected. So you have 0% asset protection. Asset protection deals with life. How do I protect what I have while I'm alive? So asset protection is, how do I protect what I have while I'm alive? Estate planning is, hey, when I die, how do I get my assets to go where you want them to go? And they are two very, very totally different, distinct avenues. Now, with that being said, I always make sure I integrate them both. So I always want to take the asset protection and I always want to take the estate planning and I want to marry it together. So while someone's alive, everything's protected, but when they pass away, everything goes where they want it to go, quickly, privately, less taxes and less lawyer fees.
Yeah, you would still incorporate the estate planning concepts into it, but that's a good distinction of the difference between.
Yeah, and not just estate planning, tax planning, business succession planning, financial planning. At the end of the day, it's really important to have one fully integrated plan because, look, there's no sense in protecting your assets from a lawsuit if they don't go where you want them to go when you die. And there's no point in having your assets go where you want them to go when you die if half of them goes to the government in taxes. So each area is really important on its own, and then you need to make sure that it's integrated all together.
All right. So what do you think I asked you about your biggest opportunity. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the business heading into the new year? So you said you wanted, double the amount of people that you help. So maybe how are you going to go about doing that? Or maybe there's another big challenge that you think the business is facing.
I think there's internal and external challenges. So, internally, my toughest thing as a business owner has always been to hire people. I'd like to hire as many great people as possible. And I'm of the believer, I don't need to be hiring. If someone knocks on my door today and they're a great person and a great employee, let's find a job for that person. But, it's very tough in today's day to hire. And I don't know if that's, people got used to being at home from COVID and don't want to work or want to retire or, value their personal time more. And that's okay. I don't know if it's government assistance. I don't know what the reason is, but for whatever reason, it is much tougher to hire someone now than it has been in the past. So from an internal perspective, it's getting good people, and I don't want average people. I want good and great people, in the firm that can help more people. Externally, I think two different things. Number one is, again, people don't know that asset protection attorneys exist. Again, sometime until it's too late. And number two, externally, competition, and it's not real competition. You have a lot of people who do other things, like maybe they're an estate planning attorney, but they claim they do asset protection. Or maybe they're a real estate attorney and they claim they do asset protection. Well, in their mind, asset protection is an LLC here or there. I mean, we are asset protection attorneys. We do nothing all day but asset protection. We speak to 5 or 10 people or more every day and do nothing but protect their personal and business assets. We've helped thousands of people. So there's a lot of people who may say they do it, but they're really not practicing it, every day or every week or even every month or every year.
Okay. And if people wanted to learn more about you or contact you, what's the best way to do that?
So they can go to our website, which is www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. Again, that's www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. And as long as they mention your show, Kris, I'm happy to send them complimentary copies of the latest books that we wrote on asset protection. No charge. That way they can educate themselves. And if they'd like to have a complimentary preliminary consultation, we'd be happy to speak to them as well. No charge, as long as they mention that they came from you.
All right, great. So Hillel, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. This is very insightful, lots of really good information. It's really been a true pleasure. And I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, for watching and listening today. The Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we are raising the retirement confidence of everyday people one show at a time. Thanks everybody for tuning in, watching and listening. We'll see you next time. Take care and be well.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Kris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.